Daeho stood by the large window in the council chamber. He watched the colorful space clouds outside. Behind him, 300 different alien species were talking and making strange noises. Some clicked, some whistled, and some used computer voices. Daeho had been waiting for this moment for 10 years. The council was the government of the galaxy. Every important species had a seat here. They made rules, solved problems, and kept peace between different worlds. But humans only had observer status. They could watch but could not vote. They could speak but had no real power. Today, Daeho hoped that would change. The Torvan species sat in the best seats. They looked like living crystals that sparkled with rainbow colors under the lights. Next to them were the Velkari, who looked like giant slugs floating in special water tanks. Both species were very old and very powerful in the council. A computer voice called out his name. Daeho turned around to see Speaker Coral, a Torvan whose crystal body glowed purple. Purple meant he was the boss here. Daeho walked down the steps to the speaking platform. His heart was beating fast, but his face stayed calm. He had practiced this speech 1,000 times. Daeho began speaking. He told the council about everything humans had done in the past 10 years. They had helped 73 different projects. They had rebuilt 4-star systems after wars. They had shared their technology with other species. They had opened their worlds to visitors from across the galaxy. Humans had proven they were good neighbors. Now they wanted to be full members of the council. The chamber became very quiet. Then Speaker Coral spoke. His words were short and hard. The petition was denied. Humans could not join the council. Daeho felt shocked. He asked why. What had humans done wrong? They had followed every rule. They had met every requirement listed in the official documents. Delegate Norix of the Velkari spoke next. There was a secret requirement, she said. A requirement that was not written in the public rules. This requirement had existed for 3,000 years. Humans had failed this test. Daeho felt his stomach drop. He asked what this secret requirement was. Speaker Coral's crystal body seemed to glow brighter. He explained that all council members must have special genetic markers. These markers showed that a species had evolved properly. Humans did not have these markers. Humans were too primitive. The word hit Daeho like a punch. Primitive. Humans had faster-than-light spaceships. They had advanced computers. Their medical technology had cured diseases for many alien species. How could they be primitive? Norix explained further. Technology did not matter. What mattered was evolution. The council only accepted species that had achieved biological perfection. Humans still fought each other. They still had emotions that made them unstable. They were violent and territorial. By council standards, humans were just smart animals. Many aliens in the chamber made sounds of agreement. Daeho looked around, hoping to find someone who would support humans. He found no one. Every species seemed to agree with the council's decision. Then Speaker Coral said something even worse. The council had voted to restrict human expansion. Humans could keep their current 12-star systems, but they could not colonize any new worlds. Any human ship that tried to settle beyond these boundaries would be stopped by military force. Daeho could not believe what he was hearing. Human colony ships were already traveling to 3 new star systems. These ships carried families, children, people who had spent their life savings for a chance at a new home. Now the council was saying these ships must turn back. Speaker Coral said the council would force these ships to return. If they refused, the council would use weapons. He claimed this was kindness. The galaxy was dangerous. Humans needed protection from themselves because they were not smart enough to survive alone. Daeho looked up at the galleries where younger diplomats watched. He saw his daughter Jiwoo standing there. Her face was white with shock. Behind her, the other human observers stood rigid with anger. 10 years of work, 10 years of being polite and following rules, and this was the result. Speaker Coral announced that the decision was final. The meeting was over. The aliens began leaving the chamber. Daeho remained standing on the platform. His mind was racing. They had not just been rejected. They had been insulted. They had not just been insulted. They had been imprisoned. Jiwoo appeared next to him. She spoke quietly, urgently. They needed to leave before he said something that would make things worse. Daeho laughed bitterly. How could things get worse? Jiwoo reminded him that he was still an ambassador. If he lost his temper now, he would create an international incident. Daeho took a deep breath. His daughter was right. He needed to stay professional. They walked through the massive doors of the council chamber. Alien delegates moved past them without making eye contact. Nobody wanted to look at the humans who had just been called primitive. As they walked, Daeho felt something changing inside him. For 10 years he had believed in diplomacy. He had believed that if humans were patient and kind, the galaxy would accept them. He had been wrong. The council did not respect patience. They saw it as weakness. The council had looked at humanity and seen primitives. They had seen animals that needed to be kept in cages. What they failed to understand was that caged animals become dangerous, especially animals that had climbed to the top of their food chain through millions of years of evolution. Daeho thought about human history. Humans had survived ice ages. They had survived diseases that killed millions. They had survived wars that destroyed entire cities. Humans were survivors, and survivors do not give up when someone tells them no. The council had made a terrible mistake. They thought humans would accept this judgment quietly. They thought humans would go back to their 12 systems and slowly fade away. They were wrong. As Daeho and Jiwoo reached their transport ship, he made a decision. Diplomacy had failed. Patience had failed. Kindness had been interpreted as weakness. The council had drawn a line and told humanity not to cross it. Fine. Humans would not cross that line. Instead, they would erase it. They would show the council what happens when you corner a species that evolution designed to fight back. The council called humans primitive. They were about to learn that primitive species are the most dangerous ones. Because primitive species do not follow rules. They do not wait for permission. They do not accept cages. Primitive species survive by any means necessary, and humanity had just been given every reason to do exactly that. Admiral Tae-young stood in the war room deep under Earth's surface. She stared at the holographic map showing all 12 human star systems. Each system now had a red circle around it. The council had placed monitoring stations at every jump point. They were turning human worlds into a prison. Commander Hana stood next to her, anger clear in her voice. The council was calling it the quarantine zone. Every human system was being watched. Council ships were positioned at the borders. If any human tried to leave, they would be stopped. Tae-young had fought in wars before. She had seen good soldiers die defending humanity's right to explore space. Now, after 10 years of peace, the council was taking that right away. The door opened. Ambassador Daeho walked in, looking older than his 53 years. His daughter Jiwoo came with him. Behind them was Dr. Yuna Kim, the head scientist who studied alien biology. Tae-young wondered why a scientist was at a military meeting. Daeho thanked the admiral for seeing them quickly. Jiwoo did not waste time with pleasantries. She said they had discovered something important, something the council did not want humans to know. Jiwoo activated her computer display. It showed genetic information, complicated chains of DNA data. After the council rejected humanity, she had ordered intelligence agents to investigate the genetic conformity clause. It took a lot of searching through secret databases, but they found old records from the Torvin species. Dr. Yuna stepped forward to explain. The genetic markers that supposedly showed evolutionary superiority were not natural at all. They were artificial. 3,000 years ago, a species called the Architects had modified the genes of dozens of species across the galaxy. The Architects had created the council races. Tae-young felt her blood run cold. She asked what kind of modifications the Architects had made. Yuna's expression was grim. The Architects had installed pacification protocols. They had removed genes that controlled aggression, territorial behavior, and survival instincts. They had created a galaxy full of peaceful species. Then the Architects disappeared, leaving these modified species to rule the galaxy. Commander Hana could not believe it. Did the council races not know about this? Jiwoo explained that some very old records hinted at the truth. But over thousands of years, the story had been changed. The council races believed they had naturally evolved to be peaceful. They thought their peaceful nature made them superior. The real truth had been buried so deep that most aliens genuinely believed they were better than other species. Daeho spoke up. There was more bad news. They had found records of other species that, like humans, lacked the genetic markers. Over the past 3,000 years, 12 other species had been tested by the council. Tae-young asked what happened to those species, though she already suspected the answer. 11 species had been quarantined just like humans. When they tried to break free, the Council declared them dangerous and exterminated them. Complete planetary destruction. Every man, woman, and child killed. The 12th species accepted the quarantine. They went extinct within 200 years because they did not have enough resources or genetic diversity. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Humans were facing extinction. If they fought back, the Council would kill them immediately. If they accepted the quarantine, they would die slowly over the next few centuries. Tae-young spoke the truth plainly. Either way, humanity was looking at extinction. Dr. Yuna said there was one more important piece of information. She had analyzed human genetics against the architect markers. She asked if they wanted to know what humans lacked that the Council races possessed. Tae-young nodded. Yuna listed them. Fear inhibitors, aggression limiters, territorial restriction genes, the capacity for what Council races would call irrational self-sacrifice. The architects had tried to remove everything that made a species dangerous in a fight. Everything that made them natural survivors. Commander Hana understood. Humans had all of those traits. Yuna confirmed it. Humans had them in abundance. Humans were what the architects feared most. An unmodified, naturally evolved predator species that had somehow developed space travel before destroying itself. Humans were the nightmare scenario. Tae-young walked to the holographic display. She studied the red boundaries around human worlds. The Council had called humans primitive. They had called humans uplifted apes. Daeho agreed that by Council standards, humans were primitive. Humans still had all the flaws the architects tried to eliminate. Humans were violent, territorial, aggressive, and emotional. Humans were everything the Council was engineered not to be. Tae-young turned back to face everyone. She said the Council had made a critical error. Those traits were not flaws. They were weapons, and the Council had just given humans every reason to use them. Jiwoo pulled up another display. Human colony ships were 3 weeks from their destinations. The Council fleet was moving to intercept them. If the Council fired on those ships, if they attacked families and children, then everything would change. Tae-young finished the thought. If the Council crossed that line, they would learn what humanity does when someone threatens their children. She looked at each person in the room. She gave orders to gather all information about Council fleet positions, defensive capabilities, and command structures. Every piece of technology humans had shared with the Council over the past decade. She wanted to know how it could be turned into a weapon against them. Daeho started to speak carefully. Was the Admiral suggesting war? Tae-young cut him off. She was not suggesting anything. She was preparing. If the Council wanted to treat humans like animals, then they were about to learn an important lesson about the animal kingdom. Her smile was cold and sharp. Predators do not go quietly into cages. The meeting ended with everyone understanding the stakes. Humanity had been backed into a corner. Now they had two choices, fight or die. As Daeho left the war room, he thought about his diplomatic career. He had spent his entire life believing in peaceful solutions. He had believed that talking was better than fighting, but the Council had rejected talk. They had chosen force. Now humanity would respond with force of their own. Jiwoo walked beside her father. She knew what he was thinking. Diplomacy had been his life's work. Now that work seemed wasted. But she reminded him that his work had not been wasted. For 10 years, humans had learned about the Council. They had studied Council technology, Council tactics, Council weaknesses. That information would now save human lives. Dr. Yuna returned to her laboratory. She had more work to do. If humans were going to fight, they needed every advantage. She would analyze every piece of data about Council biology. She would find weaknesses. She would give the military what they needed to win. Admiral Tae-young stayed in the war room. She began calling her senior officers. Plans needed to be made. Ships needed to be prepared. Weapons needed to be readied. The Council thought humans were primitive. They were about to learn that primitive species are survivors, and survivors do whatever it takes to live. Day 2 of the approach. Inside the stealth craft, Commander Tae-young checked his equipment for the 100th time. Around him, his operators sat in silence. Some slept. Others reviewed the mission plans. All of them knew what was coming. Lieutenant Sung-min approached him quietly. "Commander, a word?" Tae-young nodded and they moved to a private corner. The lieutenant's face was troubled. "Sir, do you think any of them are still alive? All 14? Tae-young considered the question carefully. "Honestly, I do not know. The Vrathari might kill more to pressure Earth Command, but he met his lieutenant's eyes firmly. That does not change our mission. We go in assuming all are alive. If some are not, we carry them home anyway. No one gets left behind, Sungmin nodded. Understood, sir. He hesitated. Sir, the men are ready. They believe in this mission. They understand why we cannot negotiate. Taeyang felt a surge of pride in his team. Good. That belief will carry us through what is coming. On the Indomitable, Captain Highrim received a disturbing report. Sir, the Vrathari have issued another deadline, 6 hours. They are threatening to execute a second hostage. Admiral Daejung's face remained calm. Let me guess. They want us to respond, to beg, to offer something. Hiram nodded. Yes, sir. The message was broadcast across all channels. They are playing to the galactic audience, trying to pressure us through public opinion. The Admiral stood and walked to the window overlooking space. Then let us respond, but not the way they expect. He recorded another message, short and direct. To the Vrathari Corsairs, you continue to make threats. We continue to make promises. Every hostage you harm moves you closer to extinction. We are coming. Nothing will stop us. Nothing will save you. The only question is whether you will be taken alive for trial, or whether you will force us to end you. Choose wisely. The message went out. Once again, the galaxy reacted with shock. The humans were not softening their position. If anything, they were becoming more aggressive. News networks exploded with debate. On the asteroid base, Warlord Thex watched the human admiral's message 3 times. His mandibles clicked nervously. This was not how hostage situations worked. The targets were supposed to feel fear. They were supposed to negotiate. But these humans felt no fear. They only promised death. His second-in-command entered the command center. Warlord, should we execute another hostage as planned? Thex stared at the screen where the human admiral's face was frozen. After a long moment, he shook his head. No, not yet. Let them sweat. Let them wonder. He turned away. But prepare one anyway. If they do not break soon, we show them we are serious. In the holding cell, the hostages huddled together. The 6-hour deadline passed. No one came for them. Young Mi felt her heart pounding. Were they being saved? Or was Warlord Thex just playing with them? Kyung-soo gathered everyone together. Listen, they did not kill anyone this time. That means something is changing. Either they are losing their nerve or something else is happening. He looked at each person. We need to be ready. Keep working on the sabotage. Keep watching the guards. Our chance might come soon. Young Mi had continued her work on the water systems. Now she moved to the air recyclers. Small changes. Nothing that would be noticed immediately, but enough to create problems. Sensors would give false readings. Alarms would go off randomly. The Vrathari would be distracted and confused when the assault came. One of the other hostages, a young communications specialist named Min Ho, approached Kyung-soo. I've been watching the guards. They change shifts every 8 hours. There is a 2-minute gap where the corridors are less watched. Kyung-soo nodded approvingly. Good work, keep noting everything. We might need that information. Meanwhile, the stealth craft were now within sensor range of the asteroid, but their advanced technology kept them hidden. Commander Taeyang received updated intelligence from the Indomitable. Captain Hirim had been working non-stop, analyzing every piece of data. Taeyang studied the new information. The hostages were being held in the lower levels of the base. 4 guard posts between them and the hangar, heavily armed Vrathari at each position. He began adjusting the assault plan. We breach here, here, and here. Simultaneous entry. Teams 1 and 2 secure the hostages. Teams 3 and 4 eliminate the guards and cut off reinforcements. His operators gathered around the holographic display. Lieutenant Sungmin pointed to a weak point. Commander, what about this corridor? It is less defended. We could use it as an escape route. Taeyang considered it. Good eye, Lieutenant. Mark it as our primary extraction path. But we need a backup. Nothing ever goes perfectly according to plan. On the Indomitable, Admiral Daejung met with his senior officers. The ship had taken up position at the edge of the asteroid field. Close enough to support the operation. Far enough to avoid detection. He looked at his tactical officer. Status of all weapon systems? All weapons ready, sir. Targeting solutions prepared for the asteroid base. We can level it in under 30 seconds once the order is given. The Admiral nodded. Good, but remember, we do not fire until our people are clear. I will not risk our own in the bombardment. Captain He-Rim entered with more intelligence. Sir, we have intercepted Vrathari communications. They are arguing among themselves. Some want to negotiate down. Others want to kill more hostages. But Warlord Thex is maintaining control for now. Daejung absorbed this information. Internal division, good. That will make them sloppy. Make sure Commander Taeyang gets this update. The Galactic Council continued its emergency session. Ambassador Vreel addressed the assembly. The humans have been given every chance to resolve this peacefully. They refuse. I propose we send council forces to intervene. Take the situation out of human hands. Ambassador Jiwoo stood immediately. With respect, that would be an act of war. Earth will not tolerate interference in our internal affairs. These are our citizens. This is our crisis, and we will handle it our way. Vreel looked frustrated. Even if your way leads to more deaths? Jiwoo's voice was firm. Ambassador, your species has paid ransom to the Vrathari 17 times in the past decade. How many more hostages did they take because you rewarded their behavior? How many innocent lives could have been saved if you had refused to negotiate the first time? She looked around the chamber. We are ending this cycle. Yes, the cost is high, but it will save countless lives in the future. In the back, General Kresh of the Draxan Empire finally spoke. The human is correct. We have paid ransoms. We have negotiated. And the piracy only grows worse. Perhaps it is time to try a different approach. He looked directly at Vreel. Perhaps it is time to learn from the humans. Sometimes strength and resolve are more merciful than weakness and compromise. The chamber erupted in debate once more. But something had shifted. Some species were starting to question the old ways. The human approach, while harsh, had a certain logic to it. And the fact that they were willing to pay such a high price for their principles impressed even their critics. On the base, another deadline passed without execution. Young Mi allowed herself a small hope. Maybe the Vrathari were backing down. Maybe they realized the humans were serious. But Kyungsoo remained cautious. Do not celebrate yet. They could still kill us all before any rescue arrives. Stay alert. Stay ready. Warlord Thex paced in his command center. The situation was deteriorating. His crew was divided. Some wanted to negotiate and take what they could get. Others wanted to kill all the hostages and flee. And the humans kept sending those cold, threatening messages. He had never encountered a species like this. Every other race showed fear. They begged. They offered deals. But the humans only promised death. And something in the Admiral's voice made Thex believe those promises. For the first time in his career as a pirate, Warlord Thex felt real fear. The stealth craft completed their approach. Commander Taeyang gave the final briefing. We go in 4 hours. Get some rest. Check your gear. Make your peace. This will be the hardest operation any of us have ever attempted. But remember why we are doing this. 14 humans are counting on us. And every pirate in the galaxy is watching. We show them what happens when you take humans hostage. The operators dispersed to prepare. Weapons were loaded. Armor was sealed. Medical packs were distributed. Each person went through their own pre-mission ritual. Some prayed. Others wrote letters to families. All of them focused their minds on the task ahead. Lieutenant Sung Min sat quietly, reviewing the building layouts one more time. He memorized every corridor, every door, every possible obstacle. When the shooting started, there would be no time to check maps. Everything had to be in his head. Muscle memory and training would carry them through. On the Indomitable, Admiral Daejung stood alone in his ready room. He looked at the photos of the hostages again. 15 faces when this started. Now only 14 remained. Bora's photo seemed to accuse him. Was this the right choice? Would history judge him as brave or reckless? He pushed the doubt away. The choice was made. The policy was clear. All that remained was execution. He activated his communication panel. All teams, this is Admiral Daejung. You have trained for this. You are the best humanity has to offer. Bring our people home and show the galaxy what happens to those who threaten us. Good luck and good hunting. Commander Taeyang received the message. He looked at his team. Time to move. The operators stood as one. They moved to the deployment bay. T-Commander Hai Jin watched the Council monitoring station through his tactical display. His stealth frigate, Shadow's Edge, hung in space like a ghost. The Velkari aliens running the station had no idea his ship was there. They had no idea what was about to happen. Lieutenant Subin reported that all human ships were ready. Operation Fury was ready to begin on his command. Heijin had watched the footage of Hope's Dawn 17 times. Each time his anger grew stronger. 300 people, families, children. The council called humanity primitive. They were about to learn what real primitives could do. He gave the order, execute. Across all 12 quarantine boundaries, human stealth ships decloaked at the same moment. The council had been studying human technology for 10 years. They felt confident in their superiority. What they did not know was that humans had been studying them too. And unlike council races, humans understood deception. The monitoring stations died without sending any distress signals, but that was just the beginning. In the Torvin home system, Admiral Tae-young's flagship Indomitable emerged from jump space. 200 other warships appeared with her. The Torvin defense fleet tried to respond, but they were too slow. They waited for orders. They followed protocols. They asked for council approval. Humanity had no such delays. Tae-young ordered her fleet to target the orbital shipyards first. She wanted Torvin military production reduced to zero within the hour. Her communications officer reported multiple calls from Torvan Defense Command. Tae-young told him to ignore them. The council had their chance to talk. They chose violence instead. The human fleet moved with frightening coordination. No debates. No committee votes. No waiting for consensus. Just pure focused aggression that the peaceful races had forgotten existed. The Torvan shipyards shattered under concentrated railgun fire. These massive crystal structures had been building warships for 1,000 years. Now they were dust. The Torvan defense fleet tried to fight back, but their tactics were outdated. They were designed for the ritualized warfare between council races. Fights where both sides followed rules, where casualties were minimal, where defeat meant negotiation, not destruction. They had never faced an enemy that did not follow any rules. Commander Hana pulled up a tactical report. The Valkyrie were mobilizing their fleets. 300 ships were heading toward the Altair system. Tae-young smiled coldly. Let them come. Captain Jae-sung's task force was waiting. In the Altair system, Captain Jae-sung watched the Valkyrie fleet approach. His task force was outnumbered 3-1. But numbers were not everything. The Valkyrie expected a defensive formation. They expected a stand-up fight where their superior numbers would win. Instead, Jae-sung scattered his ships into the asteroid belt and waited. The Valkyrie fleet entered the system in perfect formation. Their ships gleamed in the sunlight. They looked proud and confident. They had fought wars before, clean affairs with minimal casualties and negotiated surrenders. They expected humanity to recognize they were beaten. They expected humans to negotiate. They had no concept of what desperation looked like. The asteroids around them suddenly exploded with nuclear fire. Jae-sung's ships had spent the past week planting mining charges throughout the asteroid field. Now they triggered all of them at once. The Valkyrie fleet found itself in a minefield. Their shields were overwhelmed by multiple gigatons of explosives detonating simultaneously. Then human ships emerged from the debris. They targeted damaged Valkyrie vessels with cold efficiency. No honor duels, no chances for surrender, just calculated destruction. Of the 300 Valkyrie ships that entered Altair system, only 17 escaped. Back on Earth, Ambassador Daeho stood in the Situation Room watching tactical displays. He felt growing horror. This was not defense. This was total war conducted with brutal efficiency. He had never imagined his species capable of such violence. He approached Admiral Tae-young. He spoke quietly. They had made their point. The Council knew humans could fight. Perhaps it was time to negotiate. Tae-young did not look away from her displays. She asked if he wanted to negotiate after the Council killed 300 civilians. After they declared humans primitive animals. This was not about making a point. This was about survival. Daeho mentioned the casualties. All the aliens dying. Tae-young cut him off. The casualties were regrettable but necessary. The Council races had forgotten what war really meant. They forgot that species do not survive by being peaceful. They survive by being dangerous. Right now, humanity needed to be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Jiwoo appeared with new reports. The Gorthak Dominion had declared neutrality. The Melvari Union was withdrawing forces from quarantine zones. 7 minor species had formally requested humanity cease hostilities and open negotiations. The Council was fracturing. Tae-young showed satisfaction. They were fracturing because they were terrified. For 3,000 years, they lived in a galaxy where war was ritualized, where casualties were minimal, where defeat meant concessions, not annihilation. Humans had just reminded them what a real predator species looked like. More reports came in. Commander Heijin's forces had seized the jump gate network in Sector 7. This cut off Council reinforcements to 36 systems. Captain Youngsu's Marines had boarded and captured a Torvan command carrier. They stole military encryption codes that would make the next phase even easier. Across human space, civilians flooded recruitment centers. Everyone wanted to fight for their species' right to exist. The Council had awakened something in humanity, something that had been sleeping during 10 years of peaceful diplomacy. The survival instinct, the will to fight against impossible odds, the refusal to surrender. In Council space, panic was spreading. Species that had never worried about defense suddenly realized their vulnerability. Their peaceful nature, which they thought was strength, was actually weakness. They had no experience with real war, no understanding of total conflict. They fought wars like sports games with rules and referees. Humans fought wars like drowning people fight for air. The Torvan Imperium called for an emergency council session. They wanted to organize a united response against humanity, but species were too scared to commit. Some thought humans could not be defeated. Others thought the cost would be too high. Many secretly wondered if the Council had been wrong to provoke humans in the first place. Admiral Tae Young studied the strategic map. Human forces now controlled or contested 30 systems. Council forces were scattered and demoralized. Supply lines were disrupted. Communication networks were compromised. In just 2 weeks, humans had shattered the myth of Council invincibility. But Tae Young knew this was just the beginning. The Council still had thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, resources beyond counting. This war could last years, maybe decades. But humans would fight as long as necessary, because the alternative was extinction. She thought about Captain Bora and the Hope's Dawn colonists. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. They had given humanity the moral justification for war. They had shown the galaxy that the Council was willing to murder innocents. They had proven that humans had no choice but to fight. Remember us, Bora had said. Tae Young would remember. Every human would remember. And they would honor that memory by winning, by securing humanity's place in the galaxy not through permission, but through strength. Not through diplomacy, but through victory. The Council had called humanity primitive. They had drawn a line and dared humans to cross it. Now they were learning the consequences of cornering a species that evolution designed to survive. The galaxy's sheep had awakened the wolf, and the wolf was hungry for justice. Speaker Coral stood in the ruins of the Council Assembly Hall. 3 days ago, it had been a symbol of galactic unity, a monument to 3,000 years of peace. Now it was rubble. A human strike force had somehow penetrated the most heavily defended sector in Council space. The message was clear. Nowhere was safe. Delegate Norik spoke from their moisture pod. This was unprecedented. In 3,000 years, no species had dared attack the Council directly. The humans were insane. Coral corrected them. No, humans were not insane. They were desperate. There was a difference. The emergency council session had been moved to a backup facility deep in Torvan space. Of 300 member species, only 47 delegates attended. The rest were too busy defending their own worlds. Or worse, they were trying to negotiate separate peace treaties with humanity. The council was dissolving. General Thrace of the Gorthak Dominion insisted they must crush humanity. They were one species against 300. The mathematics were simple. A new voice interrupted. The mathematics were not in the council's favor. The delegates turned to see Dr. Yuna Kim entering the chamber. Human Marines in battle armor flanked her. The security forces that should have stopped her lay unconscious in the corridor. Norix asked how she got in. Yuna smiled coldly. The same way humans had been getting everywhere else. The council had spent 3,000 years in peace. They forgot how to defend against a species that actually wanted to kill them. She activated a holographic display. It showed the current tactical situation. Red markers indicated human-controlled systems, now numbering 37. Blue markers showed council forces, fragmented and retreating across dozens of sectors. In 2 weeks, humans had destroyed or captured 1/4 of council military assets. They had seized 17 strategic systems. They had disrupted supply lines and compromised communication networks. They had broken the myth of council invincibility. And they did it with a fraction of council resources. Speaker Coral said Una was proving exactly what the council feared, that humanity was too dangerous to exist in civilized space. Una disagreed. Humans were proving that civilized space was a lie. Council races were not advanced. They were domesticated. The architects did not uplift them. The architects neutered them. When a real threat appeared, the council could not handle it. She pulled up genetic data. This was what the architects did. They removed survival instincts, aggression, and territorial drives. They made council races peaceful by making them weak. For 3,000 years, they convinced themselves that weakness was virtue. But weakness was just weakness. The chamber erupted in protests. Una spoke over them. The council fired on a civilian vessel. They killed 300 unarmed colonists, including children. They declared humans primitive and tried to lock them in a cage to die slowly. They thought humans would accept this because council races forgot what species do when fighting for survival. Una explained what humans do. They adapt. They fight. They win or die trying. That was not primitive. That was evolution. General Thrace stood, his massive frame dominating the chamber. Then the council would kill all humans. Every human world would be sterilized. The species would be erased from existence. Una acknowledged they could try, but they would have to find humans first. She manipulated the display to show new data. The colony ships the council thought they stopped had not turned back. They went dark and scattered. Humans now had 37 additional hidden colony worlds. Thousands of humans breeding, building, and preparing. Even if the council destroyed Earth tomorrow, they could not find all the colonies. In 50 or 100 years, those colonies would return, stronger and angrier. The implications settled over the chamber like a heavy weight. The council's worst nightmare was not the war happening now. It was the guerrilla war that would follow for centuries. An enemy they could never fully eliminate. An enemy that would strike and fade forever. Una spoke quietly. The council made humans their enemy, and humans were very good at being enemies. The question was how many council citizens would die before the council admitted this was a mistake. Speaker Coral asked what humanity's terms were. Una listed them. Full council membership. Unrestricted colonization rights. Reparations for the Hope's Dawn massacre. And a formal apology recognizing that genetic diversity was not inferiority. General Thrace called it unacceptable. Una replied that the war would continue then. Every day it did, humans got stronger. They learned. They adapted. They captured more council technology. They recruited more species tired of council tyranny. They established more hidden colonies. How long would the council alliance hold when member species realized they were dying for pride? She turned to leave, then paused. The strike force that destroyed the assembly hall was still in council space. Deep in council space, sleeping in stations the council thought were secure, moving through systems the council thought were defended. Humans were everywhere now. They were the monster under the bed, the nightmare the council could not wake from. Una finished with a warning. The council called humans primitive, good, because primitive species do not surrender. They do not negotiate from weakness. They fight until they win or until they are extinct. And humans had no intention of going extinct. After she left, the chamber remained silent. Finally, Delegate Norix spoke in a small, frightened voice. What have we done? Coral's crystal form turned deep purple, the color of mourning among his people. They awakened something that should have stayed dormant. They gave humans a reason to show their true nature. General Thrace asked if they could defeat humanity. Coral replied yes, but the cost would be everything they were. They would have to become like humans, ruthless, desperate, willing to sacrifice everything for victory, and even then he was not certain they would win. The delegates asked what they should do. Coral looked around at the fear in every face. 3,000 years of peace and prosperity. 3,000 years of believing they were the pinnacle of evolution. All crumbling because they underestimated the primitives. Coral said they must learn. Learn that there are different kinds of strength. That survival sometimes requires the things they were engineered to abandon. That the galaxy is larger and more dangerous than they imagined. He stood, his crystal form beginning to glow with determination. And they must negotiate. Because the alternative was extinction, the council had made a terrible miscalculation. They judged humanity by peaceful standards. They expected humans to behave like domesticated species. They thought superior technology and numbers guaranteed victory. They were wrong on every count. Humanity was not fighting for territory or resources. They were fighting for survival. And survival was the oldest, strongest motivation in the universe. It made species do impossible things, made them fight against overwhelming odds, made them dangerous in ways the Council could not comprehend. The Council had 3,000 years of peace. Humanity had 3 million years of war burned into their DNA. Evolution had refined humans into survivors. The architects had refined Council races into sheep. Now the sheep were learning why predators were called predators, not because they were evil, but because they were effective. Speaker Coral began drafting the negotiation proposal. It would be humiliating for the Council, accepting humans as equals after calling them primitive. But humiliation was better than extinction. Pride was not worth dying for. The Council would bend. They would negotiate. They would give humans what they wanted, because the alternative was unthinkable.